Hello, everyone, and welcome to Outcast Media, where we believe art is a bridge to connect people, and where, among other things, we like to talk about great art that we believe achieves that goal, as well as how to help you achieve that goal with your own art, be that writing or some other medium. So today in this video, I want to talk about a movie trailer. It's not really going to be a reaction video. It's going to be an in-depth analysis of the trailer for the upcoming movie, pretentiously titled Medieval. And we're going to talk about why, in my opinion, this trailer fails to do what a movie trailer should do, which is get an audience invested in seeing your movie, get them to care about seeing your movie. And disclaimer, I am not a filmmaker, I am not a screenwriter. I am a novelist, I am a novel editor, and I am a novel writing coach. But the story principle, or I should say the principles of what make a good story and what causes people to invest in that story, those principles are pretty universal. So whether your medium is film or fiction, the same principles still apply. So this is going to be an in-depth analysis for the trailer to the movie Medieval. If you have not already seen the trailer in its entirety, I strongly recommend you go and do that elsewhere on YouTube first, then come back here for this analysis, because this is going to be in depth. We're going to be watching it in tiny, tiny little pieces and doing some really heavy in-depth analysis of each of those pieces. Y'all, I have notes. I have pages and pages of notes on this trailer. Oh, and let me just say up front, I am aware that there is a glare on my glasses. I originally tried to film this video without my glasses on, and I couldn't read my notes. So I know the glare is there. I apologize if it's distracting, if it makes it hard to see my eyes. We're just gonna have to deal with it because I need to be able to see my notes. So first of all, before we really get started on the trailer itself, can we just talk about this title a little bit? Because Medieval is a very big title. It suggests a very grand, epic scope of a story. And based on what I have seen in the trailer, what you would have seen if you've watched the trailer already, is that it doesn't really seem like this story is that big, that epic in scope. And you really don't want to have a massive title on a small story and vice versa. You want the scope and the scale that your title implies to match the scope and the scale of the actual story. So think about Downton Abbey. The title, Downton Abbey, okay, that is the place. That's the place where the story is anchored. And Downton Abbey is not a small story in any regard. There's a lot of characters, and it covers a lot of years of those characters' lives. But Downton Abbey is the central location. It's the house. It almost has its own personality. That is what the story orbits around. Imagine if instead of Downton Abbey, it had been titled England. Technically, the title England would be accurate because the story takes place in England, but it's too big. It gives us a sense of a much bigger scope that the story simply doesn't have. And by the way, saying that a story is small is in no way meant to imply that it is inferior. I've noticed some people kind of get defensive sometimes if I say, oh, well, that you're telling a smaller story. That is not in any way a bad thing. Some stories are smaller, some stories are larger, most stories are somewhere in between. We need all those stories. The small stories, the small art matters just as much as the big epic art. So don't feel like in any way, that I'm saying this is inferior because it's a smaller story. I just don't think it's going to have quite the scope that the title Medieval seems to suggest. So make sure that the scope of your title is a good match and an accurate representation of the scope and scale of your story. So without further introduction or ado, let's go ahead and get right into this trailer. Okay. And I know we literally only watched 2 seconds. I told you it was going to be in depth, guys. So the first scene we start off with here is a fight scene. Beginning with combat is rarely a good idea. Whether that's beginning your book, beginning your movie, or in this case, beginning a trailer. A lot of new to the craft writers tend to think that combat is a really strong start, right? Because it pulls the reader or the viewer into the action right away. That is actually rarely the case because it's the first scene. We don't know who the characters are yet. We don't know what the fight is about. We don't know who we're supposed to be rooting for. We don't know how the fight started. We don't know what the objective is. We don't have any reason to really invest right now. I recognize this is a trailer, not a movie, and chances are the movie doesn't start with an action scene. For its sake, I hope it doesn't. But the purpose of the trailer is to get the audience to care so that they want to see the movie, right? So if we want to get them to care, this principle is still valid. So starting with a combat scene, okay, there's action, but what is the significance? Now, we can usually guess who we are supposed to, who we are expected to care about. In fiction, this is usually going to be the viewpoint character. In the case of a film, it's usually going to be the character that we see in focus in the shot, right? So we can guess who we're supposed to care about. But we still don't have any reason to be emotionally invested. I know on an intellectual level, he's the one I'm supposed to root for, but I don't have any emotional connection to that, right? We watch documentaries for intellectual reasons. We watch movies for emotional reasons, right? And furthermore, the character in this particular combat scene, he's essentially already won the fight. He already has his opponent on the ground and is finishing him off. He's in the process of finishing him off. So why do I really need to root for him to do something that he's basically already done? And kind of as an aside here, his opponent, if you look right here, his opponent has his hand up. There we go. His bare weaponless hand. This is a universal nonverbal plea for mercy. And this character is just finishing him off anyway. Now, there may be a very good, very valid in-story reason for him to do this, right? This might be the bad guy that he's been fighting the whole entire movie. We don't know. But this is our first impression from a trailer that's supposed to make us care. And this first impression kind of makes him seem merciless. And again, we don't know if he has a good reason, right? We just don't know. So we just kind of have to assume, okay, we're supposed to care about this character because reasons, and that's really not a strong start. So let's move on.
Power. Tyranny. Violence.
Why is this man not wearing a helmet? I'm not really going to go into much the historical accuracy side of things in this trailer, or the lack of historical accuracy in this trailer. The channel Shadiversity has done a really good analysis of this trailer, the armor, the weaponry, the war machines, that type of stuff, on his channel, and I want to focus more on the technical storycraft side of things. So I'm going to try to avoid getting off on historical tangents. But one thing that Shad didn't really touch on in his channel, or in his video, that really bothers me in this trailer is nobody wears helmets. If you are going around in this stereotypical conception of the medieval period that we modern people have as just this constant bedlam of violence, and people are swinging large metal weapons at you every time you turn around, wear a helmet. And to be fair, from a filmmaking perspective, I understand he's the main character, presumably. We want the viewers to be able to see his face. But in the historical eras, when men fought with their head, their face completely covered in these metal helmets, they had some kind of marking. The leaders wore some kind of marking, whether a big crest, like dyed feathers on their helmet. The Romans, they had the dyed horsehair bristles on their helmets. Probably some kind of big insignia on a cloth garment that would go over their armor, so that the men who were following them could tell, okay, that's the guy we're supposed to be watching. He's the one we need to look to for direction and instruction, right? Because he's the leader. So if men who are fighting for their lives in battle can still distinguish, that guy with the crest on his helmet, he's the leader, he's the one I'm supposed to be watching for direction, I feel like movie viewers probably could do the same thing, but that's just me. And leading up to this particular shot, we've had a lot of more fight scenes, but it's more of the same. We don't have a reason to care because we have no idea who any of these people are, who those dead bodies all strewn along the side of a river are, who the random dead... Why are there random dead bodies hanging from a tree? Okay, that's another historical tangent. I'm not going to get off on that. Guys, the medieval era was not like this, okay? It really wasn't. You didn't just leave dead bodies lying all over the place. You took baths. You had color in your clothes. I'm going to stop. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on.
Europe was engulfed in war, plague, and famine.
And already a repeated clip from the beginning of the trailer. That doesn't look promising. If you are 25 seconds into your trailer and you're already having to recycle footage, that's not a good look. Are there so few interesting shots in this movie to choose from? Yeah, not good.
Jan? I need your help.
Catherine is the last chance to help this kingdom.
Her uncle is the King of France.
You must unite Europe.
Okay, so let's talk about this voiceover. Catherine is the last chance to help this kingdom. Her uncle is the King of France. You must unite Europe. Okay, so now we know that there's a woman named Catherine, and that she is the last chance for something, right? And writers tend to use words and phrases like last chance, only hope, as a cheap way to try to build drama and suspense and tension. The thing is, that only works if we know what she's the last chance for and why it matters, why we should care, right? Just saying she's the last chance tells us really nothing in terms of story. And the word help, well, that could mean any of a million things. Help this kingdom. Well, which kingdom? There's so much vagary. Yeah, vagary. So there's no specific clarification. These are just very weak lines. They're just kind of falling over limp. And this is not anything against Michael Caine, who is a master of his craft. But even the best actor is limited to a degree by the quality of the lines he is given to say. Is anyone else thinking about somehow Palpatine returned? You can be the best actor in the world. There's only so much you can do with that. And also the way that these clips of dialogue, which I'm guessing are not successive in the movie, the way they are cut and pieced together in the trailer, it doesn't flow well. It kind of comes off as clunky and awkward. So Catherine is the last chance to help this kingdom. The next segment of the voiceover says her uncle is the King of France. Okay, so we can maybe guess that there's some kind of political marriage on the table, but we don't know if France is the antagonist we're trying to appease. Is France someone, stronger and more powerful than us, and we're trying to persuade them to help us, maybe by way of this political marriage? Are we France and we're trying to protect Catherine from some external threat? It's just not clarified here. So again, a lot of vagaries and nothing really concrete. And guessing and asking questions are not bad things for a trailer to make us do, but it depends on what they are making us guess and ask questions about. The job of a movie trailer or a book teaser is to give their potential audience the structural framework of the story to hang their guesses and questions on, right? So I know the basic structure of what this story is going to be about, and now I really want to care because I want to fill in the gaps in that framework, right? So I have an idea of the premise of the plot, especially the conflict. I want to have some idea of who the characters are, what they stand to lose or gain based on how the movie goes, and how those characters are going to interact and or be in conflict with the conflict of the plot. That is a great framework for me to hang questions on. Oh, well, this character has this goal. How's that going to work with this thing that's coming in from over here? Those are the kinds of questions we want trailers to be making us ask, or making our potential readers, potential viewers ask. Because we want them to be intrigued and invested in what the stakes are. That is what gets people to want to see a movie. So we are 40 seconds into this trailer, and we still really don't know much of anything about who or what this movie is really about. We know that there's a guy named Yan who is presumably some kind of mercenary, and we know that there's a woman named Catherine. That's really all we know. So 40 seconds of trailer have basically told us nothing. So let's go ahead and move on.
Kidnapping her is the only way.
We don't kidnap women.
The King's rules are God's rules.
Okay, so we finally have a little bit of back and forth dialogue between two characters, which is great in theory, except the dialogue that they have chosen and the way in which they have given it to us, again, tells us almost nothing. So, kidnapping her is the only way. Okay, so now we know that there's going to be a kidnap attempt. Okay, great. But the only way to what? To unite Europe? Kidnapping king's nieces tends to cause more conflict than it resolves. So, okay, maybe there's a little bit of guesswork there, but it's not particularly emotionally compelling guesswork. It's more of just kind of I don't know that plan is going to work as well as you think it's going to work. So it may be that the plan is to try to force Catherine to marry some particular person in the hopes of getting France to agree to an alliance with that person, or more likely the political entity that person represents. But that is sheer guessing on my part, because this trailer just doesn't tell us. I want to go on a historical tangent. I'm going to go on a historical tangent. Contrary to the popular modern misconception of the medieval period, women did not just go around getting kidnapped at the drop of a hat and forced to marry whoever it was that kidnapped them left and right. Kidnapping was then, as now, illegal. Forcing a woman to marry you was then, as now, illegal. And there were pretty severe consequences, not only for the man who forced the woman to marry him, but for the priest who had performed the marriage ceremony. Priests were actually supposed to ask, any time they performed a marriage ceremony, they were supposed to ask the woman if she was doing this of her own free will, or if she was being forced or coerced. And if she said she was being forced, the priest was not supposed to perform the ceremony. Now, can we have a conversation about parental pressure, political pressure, what have you? Yes. Okay, you can force someone without forcing them. Okay, and I get that. But this conception of the medieval period as just this constant bedlam of women being dragged off by their hair and forced to marry some random guy every time they set foot out of their house, it was not a thing. Okay, it was not a thing. Historical tangent over, back to the trailer dialogue. Kidnapping her is the only way. Like saying that Catherine is the last chance for something, this is kind of another example of trying to build up drama and tension without any real substance. It sounds dramatic, but it's kind of cheap, superficial drama, because it doesn't actually give us any insight into the situation. It doesn't give us insight into the characters, the conflict, or why we should care. The only way to what? And how does that put the characters in conflict? So then we hear Ben Foster's character, Jan, who is presumably going to be the main character, saying, "We don't kidnap women." Now, it's not clear who "we" is, but we saw a few seconds ago there was a purse of money placed on the table. So presumably this is not a knight and his liege lord situation, because if it were, the liege lord could just order the knight to go and do the thing, and the knight would really have no choice but to go and do the thing. There wouldn't need to be a financial incentive. So we can guess that Jan's character is probably some kind of mercenary, okay? And then we get this line, "We don't kidnap women." This is actually the first hint of any kind of real specific character conflict that we have gotten into this trailer, in this trailer so far, 49 seconds into it, okay? Because that tells us, that line, "We don't kidnap women," tells us Jan has a principle that he believes in. And he's just been offered a financial incentive to violate that principle. This is good, meaty, strong character conflict that would be hugely compelling, except it gets completely cut off at the knees by the rest of the trailer. So we're gonna watch the next little sequence here. Okay, this is what I mean about giving us a little hint of character conflict and then immediately canceling it out. So the character Yan says, "We don't kidnap women," giving us the impression that he's a man of principle who's going to be conflicted and distraught about having to violate that principle. Michael Caine's character says the king's rules are God's rules. That's a pretty accurate depiction of the general idea people had about the authority of kings in that era. People believed that the king was put on his throne by God, and that therefore to defy the king, to disobey his orders, was to defy or disobey God. So there's more conflict there. Yan is torn between, well, I have this principle that we don't kidnap women, but I have to obey the king, I have to obey God. But 5 literal seconds later, we see him not just doing the thing that he said he would not do, kidnapping a woman, but he's doing it while impersonating a member of the clergy, which was a huge no-no in the medieval period. You do not impersonate members of the clergy. You just don't. So we're given this tiny little scrap of conflict to look forward to, right? Yan is a man of principle who's been offered incentive. You could say multiple incentives, the authority of the king, and a financial incentive to violate that principle. And then not only do we see him just immediately violating that principle, but violating it in a very dubious fashion. So there's no reason left for me to care. And you could do something as small and simple. Let me see if I can
I've got rules.
Oh, nope. I didn't make it.
It's rules.
Let's try again.
I've got rules.
Okay, I got it. So this shot right here, there's a little bit of tension right here in his forehead. There's a little bit of emotion right there, okay? Which is good acting on his part. Presumably, seeing this without much context at all. You could do something as simple as when Yan turns around and Catherine realizes, oh my goodness, now how she knows he's not the priest, it's not entirely sure. But when Catherine realizes, oh my goodness, something is wrong, you could do something as simple as him saying, I'm sorry, and then they grab her. You could even just dwell longer on this shot right here. I'm pointing at my screen as though you can see me pointing at my screen. You could dwell longer on this shot right here. In the movie, I am certain that they do. But in the trailer, it's so brief. Blink and you miss it. I mean, you saw how difficult it was for me to actually manage to hit pause on this shot. So a lot of people are not going to get this in the trailer. They're not going to see this expression if they're not paying a lot of attention, which at almost a minute into this trailer, that's not particularly interesting. Why would you be paying attention? Again, blink and you miss it. They look down to get a drink or whatever. They're not going to see this. So really, you could do something like have him whisper, I'm sorry, or you could just dwell longer on this shot and show that emotion, that conflict that he feels about this. But they brush by it so quickly that it's really lost. So we've lost all of the reason that we had for investing emotionally. All right.
Oh my God.
Random person standing in a window, acting shocked at the sight of an empty saddle. So I'm guessing that that's Catherine's horse, and that seeing the empty saddle somehow has clued this guy, whoever he is, into her kidnapping. But who is he? Is this her uncle, the King of France? If so, then who was the older king that we saw at the beginning of the movie? We don't know.
not letting me go?
Letting you go would defeat the purpose of kidnapping you. Now, to be fair, in context of the movie, I'm sure, I hope, that this is a more reasonable thing for her to ask. But this is kind of a weird choice to put in the trailer, and it almost comes across as the character is not particularly bright, because why would we go to all the trouble of kidnapping you and dragging you to this, apparently we're in a cave, why would we go to all that trouble just to let you go? So it doesn't tell us a lot about the story, and it makes the character seem a little dense. So it's not particularly useful.
I need you alive.
Okay, so she asks, "You're not letting me go," and then Yan says, "I need you alive." That's a little bit of a weird choice of scene cut, because first of all, "I need you alive" does not make a lot of sense as an answer to the question, "You're not letting me go." So I'm assuming that it's just cut and moved from somewhere else in their conversation. But second, this is another example of cheap, superficial drama that's meant to sound really cool and epic, but doesn't really tell us anything. And third, this is information we can already infer, right? Yan was not paid to murder Catherine. He was paid to kidnap her. So we, as the viewers of this trailer, have no reason to believe that he ever intended to kill her. And so this is not giving us new information. This is telling us something that we never felt the need to think about. So why waste your trailer time? You know, a trailer is so short. Why waste your valuable trailer time telling us things we already know?
It will be close.
It will be close. Okay, in storycraft, whether that is screenwriting, novel writing, whatever the case may be, there's a concept called the ticking time bomb, okay? When you plant a ticking time bomb in your story, it builds tension, right? Your characters, it's not a literal ticking time bomb, necessarily. It's a figurative ticking time bomb. Characters must do A before B, or else C, bad thing will happen, right? So there's a deadline. We're racing the clock, or something awful is going to happen. We're going to fail in our mission. We're all going to die. The world will blow up, whatever the case is in your specific story. So some random person whose voice we have not heard before saying in voiceover, "It will be close," is meant to build drama because it's meant to create that ticking time bomb effect. But nothing that we have seen thus far in the trailer gives us any indication that there is a ticking time bomb. And so "it will be close" again fails to engage our emotions, because what will be close? There's no indication of a timeline, a deadline for anything. So this is another example of cheap, superficial drama that sounds cool but doesn't really give us any specific concrete information to invest our emotions in.
I need to find her.
Okay, and yet another person we don't know, and whose identity is not explained or revealed, whose significance to the story or other characters is not known, telling us nothing additional about the story, and repeating something that we can easily infer. When someone is kidnapped, someone else tries to find them. It's kind of universal. Especially since we already know her uncle is the King of France. Now, I don't know if that's who this is or not. We have no idea. But this is not useful information that is building drama. It's more of that it sounds cool, but doesn't really tell us anything.
I know who did it, and those soldiers are never gonna find him. Why? Because I trained him.
Okay, so this is some semi-decent stuff here, despite it being very cliche. I can literally think of like 5 or 6 movies off the top of my head that you could take these lines out of this trailer, drop them into that movie, and if they aren't word for word identical, they're close enough that you would never know the difference. So there's that. We still don't know who curly-haired guy is, but through this exchange of dialogue, we can guess he's supposed to be some kind of antagonist in some degree. Maybe he wants to marry Catherine and is the person they're trying to keep her away from. And then this old soldier guy says he's clearly someone who mentored Yan at some point. He says, I trained him. And he says, I know who did it, and those soldiers are never going to find him. Okay, telling us, I trained him, and I know he's very good at his job, right? So that gives us a little bit of tension, because we can assume from this that the mentor figure is going to be pitted against the mentee. Is that a thing? We're just going to go with it. They're going to be pitted against each other at some point, which is good conflict in theory. The problem is that we have not been given any reason to care about the mentor-mentee relationship, which again would have been so super easy to do with a very tiny, quick little scene at the beginning, or at least earlier on, showing the mentor and mentee together, maybe a training scene, maybe a flashback, maybe fighting side by side, the mentor telling the mentee, I'm proud of you, or you're my best student, or you've done so well, or something like that. We need, the main thing here is we need to feel that there is something there to be lost. In this case, it would be a mentor-mentee bond, right? There's a relationship, there's a bond that they now stand to lose, and not just lose, but be forced to go against each other. Whether forced, like with threat of violence, or just, well, we have such different ideas, and my ideas force me to go against you. It doesn't have to be literal physical force. It can be internal. And honestly, because of the structure of this scene, you could actually cut out the earlier scene where curly-haired guy, whoever he is, says, I need to find her, because this scene right here would tell you that same information that curly-haired guy wants to find Catherine. It would tell you that on its own and in a more compelling way.
Tomorrow, she will be yours.
You must protect her.
Remember my earlier rant about why is this guy not wearing a helmet? This is why you wear a helmet.
I will do whatever it takes.
Okay, I'm going to back up just a little because I want you to see. Right. So we have this on-screen text that says, one man will command the fate of an empire. Try to think, this is an exercise for you to do at home. Try to think how many movies you have seen that you could put that text, one man will command the fate of an empire. You could put that text in the trailer for that movie and it make perfect sense. How many movies have you seen? I'm guessing a lot. I can think of 8, 9, maybe 12. There's a lot, right? So this is very unoriginal. It tells us nothing. It could apply to so many different stories. And books, oh my goodness, if we add books into it, I mean, good heavens, my book. This would be the perfect line to go on the teaser of my book. But I was more original than this, so. And this is more of that same juvenile kind of writing that thinks like, that words like, I need you alive, last chance, only hope, command the fate. It sounds so cool! But it's very non-specific. And non-specific things don't make us care. So if you want someone to watch your movie, you need them to feel something, right? People invest when they feel. Like I said earlier, we watch documentaries to think. We watch movies to feel, right? I watch a trailer and decide to go see that movie because the trailer made me feel something and promises me that I'm going to feel something even more if I go see the movie. So it invests my emotions, and I want to see the movie to get a return on that investment. If you want someone to watch your movie just for a visual spectacle, which is a thing, right? That's a valid reason to make a movie, just to show off the visual spectacle. But if you want people to watch your movie just for the visual spectacle, then your visuals need to be on a level of like Avatar, which Avatar had a very rudimentary, simplistic, cliche, honestly, plotline, but the visuals were gorgeous and stunning, and Avatar made a gazillion dollars because it was so gorgeous. This movie isn't even promising that. This movie is not visually gorgeous. This movie is a grunge fest of monochromatic misery. See my earlier rant about color existed in the Middle Ages. Sometimes it was a little too colorful even. So, okay, moving on.
I will do whatever it takes. I will burn every tree in the forest.
Okay, I will do whatever it takes. I will burn every tree in the forest. We can assume that this guy is referring to getting Catherine back. And the statement, I will burn every tree in the forest, is very destructive imagery. So this kind of reinforces our earlier assumption that this character is probably the bad guy. But again, this really fails to make us care because we don't know what the stakes are. What is going to happen to Catherine if this guy gets her back? Is he going to force her to marry him? Is he going to kill her? Is he going to lock her in a convent? What is going to happen to the kingdom we're trying to help if this guy gets her back? What does Yan stand to lose? What does Michael Caine's character that we saw earlier, what does he stand to lose? We don't know. We have no idea what the stakes are. So these threats of being willing to do whatever it takes fails to engage our emotions.
He cannot be allowed to get Catherine.
Okay, so we have a lot more meaningless fighting because we have no idea who's fighting who because everyone is in the same grungy gray outfits. And then we have the line, he cannot be allowed to get Catherine. But why? I know I am harping on this, but the literal point and purpose of a trailer is to make us want to see the movie by showing us what the stakes are. And at this point, it almost feels like the makers of this trailer are going out of their way to avoid telling us that. It's not that hard if your movie has clear stakes, or your novel, or your novelette, or your short story, if it has clear stakes, it's not that hard to communicate what those stakes are. So it almost feels like this is deliberate. I'm sure it's not. Although, honestly, okay, side note here. A lot of new to the craft, inexperienced writers, be they novelists, screenwriters, what have you, a lot of new to the craft writers have a crippling fear of giving away the story or giving spoilers. I have had professional interactions with writers as their editor who they have hired to help them with their story. I have had situations where I ask them about a particular aspect of their story and they tell me, well, I don't really want to tell you that because it's a spoiler. Okay, if I am your editor, I get spoilers. I get all the spoilers. You have to give me spoilers or I really can't help you edit your novel. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. So a lot of writers have this crippling fear of giving away spoilers. And so in their back cover teaser, in their marketing material, their promotional material, their social media material, they try to make it sound really cool by using phrases like whatever it takes, last chance, nothing to lose, the only hope. They use phrases like that, one man will command the fate of an empire, in order to try to sound cool without giving away any specifics. If you want a potential audience to become an actual audience, you have to give something away, okay? You don't have to spoil the story. There's a difference between a spoiler and spoiling the story. You can still leave the big twist that turns everything around. You can still leave that a secret. Do the characters, do the love interests end up getting together? You can leave that a secret. Does this character live or die? You leave that a secret. But there are certain things that you have to give away. This character values honor above everything, and he's going to be forced to go against it. Okay? That's a specific. This character has a specific thing that they do not want to lose, and they're going to lose it. Right? Those are specifics. Yes, it spoils those little aspects of the story. It does not spoil the story as a whole. And you have to be willing to do that. And an experienced writer understands, I have to be willing to give away these little pieces. I can still save the big spoilers for once they've actually committed to the investment of reading the book or watching the movie. I can still save those spoilers for that, but I have to give away these little things or they're not going to care. So that's a little bit of why it's important to give specific information. So I'm going to stop ranting and we're going to move on. Okay. So it lists Til Schweiger, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, in the trailer credits, and it shows this close-up of his face, and he has literally done nothing at all in this trailer except look out a window and say, oh my. We have absolutely no idea what his role is, outside a guess that he probably knows Catherine somehow. That's all. We don't know what role he's going to play in this movie, whether he's good guy or bad guy. We know literally absolutely nothing other than he probably knows Catherine. And if you don't have time, if you just can't fit more shots of him into your trailer, again, a movie trailer is a very small medium to be working in. If you just don't have time for more shots of him, then use this one for all it's worth, right? Use this one to show him doing some action or saying some piece of dialogue that is going to tell us more about his character and what his role in the conflict, specifically how he's going to contribute to the conflict. Use your time wisely, right? Don't just use a shot of him glaring at someone beyond the camera. Use it of him, make this a shot of him doing or saying something that gives us more information.
If you choose to fight, you may die.
I'm sorry, but this line just makes me laugh. Like the line itself, the way it's delivered, it's if you choose to go out in the rain, you may get wet. Like, it's just funny to me. Sorry.
But for your cause, and that is a good death.
The problem is, we as the viewers have no idea what that cause is. Like, are we still on uniting Europe? Is that still the cause we're going for? Has the cause changed over the course of the story? That happens often, whether it's movie or novel. We start off with one objective. Along the way, something changes, we learn more, we fail at something, there are consequences to our failure, and the objective evolves or dramatically shifts entirely. You know, sometimes it's more of a gradual evolution, sometimes it's a radical about face. So we really have no idea, is saving Catherine the cause, or we don't know what the goal is, and so we can't really get into the emotion of that cause, whatever it is, or this speech, because we're outsiders. We have no information. We have no reason to feel anything. Oh, and did you notice the little scene thrown in there with all the fighting shots? There was that little kiss scene where Catherine and Jan are going in for a kiss. In theory, and I mean in practice also, this is supposed to let the viewers know that, hey, it's not just going to be all action like the other 98% of this trailer has shown you. It's not just going to be all action. There's going to be romance too, which is supposed to increase the movie's appeal and broaden the target audience, right? Because not everybody wants just a straight up action movie. A lot of people want some romance in with the action. So in theory, that's great, but you should be able to say it with me now. We don't care because we haven't been given a reason to care. We have been shown no hint about Catherine's personality, what kind of chemistry she and Jan may have. We're not shown, we're shown one very, very brief, vague interaction between them in the cave when she says, "You're not letting me go," and he says, "I need you alive." That's the only interaction we've seen between them before we have this little kiss scene. So we have no hint of how their relationship is going to develop. What is this going to do to the conflict dynamic of the story? Is that going to shift Jan's objective? We don't know. And again, it would be so easy to do. They just haven't done it. And so we're left not feeling anything.
Who's got?
Kings may be chosen by God, but they still make the mistakes of men.
Okay, so this here, 6 seconds from the end of this miserable, pointless trailer, we finally have a really, really good line. Kings may be chosen by God, but they still make the mistakes of men. This is an awesome line that is packed with built-in conflict, and I am here for it. Why did they have to save it to the very end of the trailer, by which point I've already decided I don't care, right? So this line contrasts the massive amount of authority that a king has with the fact that a king is still just a man, and he makes a man's mistakes. The implication is that when a king makes a mistake, the consequences can be way more massive than other people's mistakes, just because they carry so much authority and power. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it is Ben Foster's character, Yan, who's saying this line. So personally, I would have put this line way earlier in the trailer. Maybe shortly after Michael Caine's character says his line about the king's rules are God's rules. Maybe even earlier than that, because that would show contrast between their characters' perspectives. And that would create potential for a ton of conflict and tension because, okay, Michael Caine's character has this lofty view of the king's authority. The king basically speaks for God, and he's using that as a tool to try to persuade Yan to do something that violates his personal principles. So if we were then to hear Yan say this line about kings being chosen by God, but still making the mistakes of men, that would really amp up the tension and get us asking questions, and good questions. Okay, that would give us a pretty significant chunk of framework here that we could then hang useful questions on. And asking questions in a good way. How are these dynamics going to impact the characters, the conflict, the outcome of the story? So those are the things we want trailers to make people ask, or book teasers to make people ask, because those are the kind of intriguing moral and ethical dilemmas and interpersonal conflicts that get people to watch a movie or read a book. So there's one really great line in this trailer, and it's at the very end where it's kind of too little too late. So this is a very, very action-heavy trailer. I mean, I didn't actually time it and do the breakdown, but I mean, a good 90-95% of this trailer is just action from people we don't know, for reasons we don't know. Action in a trailer is fine, but you need to balance it with dialogue. In this trailer, we've got action and tiny bit of dialogue. You really want to try to find more of a balance, because not only does that give people a more accurate picture of what kind of movie they can expect, which helps them decide, is this movie right for me? Am I the right audience for this movie? And you get fewer bad reviews that way, because you have fewer people seeing your movie and disliking it simply because it's not their thing. You need clear messaging in your promotional material to let people know whether this is their thing or not, or to help them make that decision and make it a good decision. Any author can tell you they have bad reviews on their books. There are bad reviews on movies, and it's obvious from these bad reviews that the problem was not with the book or the movie itself. The problem was not with the reader. The problem was that the book or movie and the reader or viewer were not a good fit for each other, and therefore it ended up with a bad review. So it's very important to be consistent in your messaging. And on that note, let's see. So, on that note, I want to talk about some more of the promotional messaging for this movie. Oh dear, what's going on? I said stop. Okay. Here we are. So this is an official poster for the movie Medieval, and it has the main cast of characters on a very, very dark, grungy... Guys, the sun did shine now and then in the medieval period, and, like, there were colors. People did not just wear gray. Like, look, you can even tell. Till Schweiger's character right here. You can see his surcoat is supposed to have, like, color and pattern to it, and they've just washed it out. Sorry. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the messaging. All right. So, we have the cast in front of a very, very dark, violent background. We have the title, and then the tagline, "For love, for honor." So, how is this consistent with the message we were given in the trailer? For love, it's the first thing that's listed here in this tagline. The only hint of love that we got in the trailer was this tiny, short little snippet of Jan and Catherine going in for a kiss. We did not see anything about their budding relationship. We didn't see anything about their interpersonal dynamics. Poor Catherine. We'll get to her in a minute. This girl is not given any personality in this trailer at all. Like, the poor girl. And first of all, why is she the only woman in the entire trailer? Now, I get it. If it's a war movie, women did not fight in this era. Period. They just... And you can throw Joan of Arc at me all you want. Joan of Arc was an extremely rare exception, okay? As a general rule, women simply did not engage in warfare in this period of history. So if it's a movie about warfare, military conflict, that type of stuff, I don't expect and I don't require filmmakers, you must have equal numbers of characters, of men and women. That's not realistic. But women still existed. So that's just a little rant there. So we're given no hint of any kind of personality dynamics, character chemistry, growing relationship between the characters. We're not given any of that. And yet this poster says, "For love." Well, that's very inconsistent with what we saw in the trailer. And then it says, "For honor." Okay, we were given a little hint at a matter of honor in the trailer when Jan says, "We don't kidnap women," right? He has a principle. It's a matter of honor for him. But then we immediately see him violate that principle, and as we already discussed, violate it in a very questionable way. So this is not really consistent with the messaging that we saw in the trailer. So we're going to look at this other movie poster here. This is just the character Jan in front of, hey, at least there's some color and some light. There's very, very little color here, but there's some. And there's white, there's light in this one. But it says, "For honor, for justice, for freedom." Okay, we already talked about the whole honor thing. For justice. Justice for whom? For Catherine? For France? For Jan being forced to violate his principle? Like, who? We weren't given any hint of that in the trailer. And so this is not consistent with the messaging that the trailer gave us. And also this is not mentioned in the previous poster that we just looked at. So it's not consistent with that either. For honor, there's that for what that's worth. And then it says, "For freedom." Where was that suggested in the trailer that we watched? Like, are we fighting to obtain freedom from someone? Are we fighting to preserve freedom we already have? Are we fighting for Catherine's freedom? Are we fighting for Yan's freedom to be with Catherine? What? We have no idea what freedom we're talking about. So this is very inconsistent. This is very inconsistent also. So I have one more little promo thingy that I want to show you. Okay, I don't know if you can see this very well. It's kind of small on my screen. Let me see if I can enlarge it. There we are. Okay, so it's a graphic of Lady Catherine, and the post with it says, Lady Catherine becomes a pawn in the king's plan to take over the throne after she is kidnapped by Yan Ziska? I'm sorry, I have no idea how to pronounce this. Please don't be mad at me. But let it be known, she is not going lightly. Was anything like that even remotely hinted at in the trailer? Like, this text right here with this graphic is supposed to, presumably, send this sort of, yeah, girl power, strong, independent heroine who's gonna fight for her own agency. It's supposed to send that kind of vibe, I assume. But that is not remotely the same vibe that we got from watching the trailer. Poor Catherine, as I said earlier, what precious little time she is actually given on screen in the trailer, she is 100% passive. What does Catherine do in that trailer? Let's make a list. She asks a silly question. Or a question that at least is made to seem silly by giving it to us in a very strange, random context. So she asks a silly question. She kisses her kidnapper, and she dodges a spear in her underwear. That's all she does. Where am I supposed to get a strong, independent heroine, girl power vibe from that? If I am looking for a girl power movie, that trailer would never ever make me think, yes, this is what I'm looking for. And if I'm not necessarily looking for a girl power movie, and I watch that trailer, I'm not going to think it is a girl power movie. So if I then watch the movie, now, at this point, who knows what kind of movie it's actually going to be when it finally comes out in a few weeks. There's no way of knowing, honestly. But if I'm not looking for a girl power movie, and I watch the trailer, I'm not going to think it's a girl power movie. But then if I watch it and it is a girl power movie, well then that's not what I expected. And again, people not getting what they expect is what gets you bad reviews. So I did a little bit of research, basic research, after writing this analysis. And it turns out this is apparently a Czech movie. It is the most expensive Czech movie to be made to date. And on the one hand, I am really, really happy to hear that. Because I want to see more international movies being made and being spread around the world, right? I want to have art from more countries and more cultures and more aspects of history, because this is based in history, however lightly that may be. I suppose that will be seen later. I want to be able to enjoy art from other countries and other cultures, because art is a bridge to connect people, and I want to be able to connect with other people, other countries, other cultures. So I love seeing art coming out of countries we don't normally think about. When you think big blockbuster movies, you don't think the Czech Republic, right? That's you think the UK, you think the United States. That's what you think of. So I want to see productions like this do well, because that means we get more of them. I would love to see more movies in the medieval genre do well, because I love movies in the medieval genre, and I would love to watch more of them. I would love to have more of them that are good, that are solid, that I can enjoy watching over and over, that I'm happy to purchase and keep on my shelf. But I'm really, really afraid that this movie is not going to do well, because box office performance is really important to how well a film does overall. And the thing that gets people to the box office is clear, consistent, compelling marketing. And from what we've looked at, I really don't see that for this movie. I'm still on the fence. I may or may not actually end up watching this movie. Part of me wants to watch it just because I really, really want to be wrong, and I want it to be a really good movie, even if the trailer was not. And you know, the film itself may be really, really well structured and well done, but I'm also concerned that, you know, this is going to be a discouragement to countries like the Czech Republic or whatever other countries might be wanting to make movies about their own history, their own culture, their own ideas. Because if this one doesn't do well, then that's not going to be encouraging, and movies like this are going to be less likely to get made in the future. So I hope you've taken some good things away from this. Writers, whether you're writing, as I said, novels, graphic novels, movies, stage plays, whatever you're writing, I hope you've taken some good things away from this in terms of how to get an audience to invest. And yes, we were just talking about a movie trailer, but a lot of the principles we talked about carry over into the work itself, be that your novel, your movie, what have you. So I hope you've been able to maybe get some insight into how to make an audience care or not care about your story, and how to be consistent in your promotional messaging, or at least why it's important to be consistent in your promotional messaging. So that is all I have for this analysis of this trailer, but I don't really like ending things on, I don't want to put out a negative and not follow it up with something positive. So for my next video, I am very excited. We did an analysis in this video of a trailer that is kind of bad. We're going to do in the next video an analysis of a trailer that is, in my humble opinion, phenomenal. And it's a trailer for one of my very favorite movies of all time. The trailer itself is art unto itself. And I have watched the movie probably 20 plus times, and no matter how many times I watch it, the trailer still makes me want to go back and watch the movie again. So we're going to be breaking down that trailer. I'm not going to tell you which one it is. You're going to have to come back for the next video in order to find that out. So that is what my next video is going to be. We're going to be breaking down a good trailer and what they do well. So if this video kind of gave you some things not to do, next video is going to give you some things to do, something to build with rather than just take down. So if you found this video helpful, please drop a like below. If you have questions, something you'd like me to go into more detail on, maybe if you disagree with my opinion and you feel that this was well done, or there's part of my analysis that you feel was not accurate, let me know in the comments and we will chat about it. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this very long video. I will see you all on my next video, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Cheers!